Hello, everybody. This is Sudha Jamthe, and this is the IoT show. Thank you for joining us this week again. We have an interesting topic about measuring air quality. And it looks kind of boring to measure air quality. It looks like, we know there's a lot of pollution. What can we do about it? What fascinated me is the lineup we have today are two awesome guests. And I'm not going to tell you more because I would like you to hear from them. But we could measure air quality as individuals, or we could actually go to that at a city level. And the good thing is we have experts to talk about both. So let me first go to Vera. Hi, Vera, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine.
So you're joining us from Russia?
Yes, that's right.
So that's awesome. And you know something? You're the first women speaker guest in my show.
Oh.
I've been looking for an IoT woman.
Nice.
So thank you. And which part of Russia, where are you joining us from?
St. Petersburg.
Okay, that I know. Okay, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I have engineering background. I started from working on smartphones in Motorola in Chicago, actually, and then I also worked in Toyota. I developed the world first dual-screen smartphone, which has the e-ink screen on the back.
Yeah.
And then I jumped to the IoT, basically wearables and different IoTs. We created several different projects for mobile carriers, different smart homes, and then about a year ago we started to study the air quality, air pollution field, and to work on the sensors for measurement of the air pollution. And right now, here we are with our product for the personal air pollution monitoring.
That's awesome. So I would love to talk more about Atmotube and what it does and how you got there. So before that, I'm going to introduce our other guest, James.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. And you're joining us from London, proper.
Yeah, proper London. Yep, so my name's James Moulding. I'm the community manager at Open Sensors.io. I also spend my time in another startup around air quality called Air Public, which is putting air quality sensors on bikes. I've worked in a tech think tank, and I've done some research in this area. And Open
Has your interest always been in air quality?
Pardon?
Has your interest always been in air quality?
No. I did my degree in politics, and I've been looking at critical side of technology for some years. And then more recently, when I joined as part of Open Sensors, we really spent some time researching and looking into community science groups and air quality groups, and how we can best bring all of these groups together and better support them in publishing their data as open data so that others can, activists, campaigners, researchers, people like urban planners and local authorities can make use and access the data to make better urban interventions and protect people's health.
So that's an amazing background you've got, and you actually spoke about a lot about open data, which is very dear to my heart, so we will talk about that in detail in a little bit. So I'm going to switch back to Vera. So just to get this stage set on monitoring air quality. So I played with Sensordyne, and it actually has carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and gas leaks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So not to oversimplify what you're doing. So is it a big deal to measure air quality with a sensor?
Well, it's a big deal to measure it accurately, first of all.
That's a good one.
Yes, so the volatile organic compound sensors are kind of there yet, so you can make it pretty compact, low power, and so to combine all the sensors in a very small form factor that you could take with you everywhere, so it's really
so
tiny.
That's the real thing.
Yeah,
I saw that. It felt like really good. Can you move this way a little bit? Yeah. Ah, that's, oh, it is actually in the kitchen. I saw that in a picture, but I wasn't sure how big it was. Okay, now
Yes.
I'm convinced I want one. Okay. So tell
Yes.
me,
The
so the
challenge.
challenge is, sorry, so the challenge is bringing the bunch of sensors into that form factor?
Yes, make them accurate enough in this small size and make them affordable enough so everybody could afford to buy them and start using them. Because, you know, crowdsourcing the data on the air pollution is a great idea, but the problem is that people are not really interested in that, you know, in order to go and buy some, you know, $300 sensors that they cannot afford. So the problem is not that big yet, or at least the understanding of this problem is not yet there. So people would be spending, you know, big money to buy big sensors to measure every little compound in the air. And then we figured out the way to combine the most common pollutants that can be measured accurately in a small form factor, and we made this really affordable.
So I want to come back to this accurate, the measure accurate part that you repeated. So it's a big deal, but I want to understand what it is. But before that, let's go back to James to understand what kind of sensors he deploys and get us to the common page on just measuring air quality. Okay? And feel free to jump in. We want to keep it conversational. So tell us about, you know, what you do when you created this whole, you know, what you did when you created this whole open sensors project for London, and what sensors you used. Walk us through.
So very recently, around August, September, we applied for an Open Data Institute Summer Showcase. And as part of that, we were successful. And as part of that, we deployed 20 air quality eggs. Hang on, I've got one here. It's not actually properly plugged in because my USB ports don't work. But here's an air quality egg, and this measures particulates. Sorry, it doesn't measure particulates. Sorry, it measures NO2, humidity, temperature, and carbon monoxide.
I wanted James to show that Vera just for size compared to the Atmotube. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we deployed around 20 of those in around Heathrow area because at the moment there's we felt it was a really good example of a community project, a potential community project, in the sense that Heathrow is the largest airport in the United Kingdom. It's proven to have an air pollution problem and a noise pollution problem, and they're planning. The government is currently deciding whether or not to expand the airport, and as a result of this, the local community, most of which are against the expansion, but on health grounds and annoyance grounds and that kind of thing, are incredibly enthusiastic in trying to better understand the effects of the airport at the moment that it has on them and the air quality. And the future impact of, say, the third runway that they're about to build. They may or not build. So as part of that, we did.
Sorry, you measured air quality, or you measured air quality and sound pollution?
Yeah. So we measured. So the air quality egg normally only measures from air quality on an air quality perspective as NO2, but we modified the air quality egg to include measuring noise. Yeah.
Okay. And so you set this up all around London, and when you say all around London, you just go put it on lamppost and stuff?
No. So there's an existing sensor network around Heathrow Airport. We put them immediately around Heathrow Airport within 9 kilometres of London's huge, but on the west side of London, the airport is something like it's about 10 miles away from central London to the west, and we picked a perimeter of about 9 to 10 kilometres around that airport. Now, the existing capacity to monitor air pollution there is run by the local authority called Heathrow Airwatch, but the data they produce isn't real time. It's not very accessible. It's definitely not, it's open data, but you can only email it. You can only download it via an email data dump. It's fantastic quality, but it's only extremely limited to basically the perimeter fence of the airport. So what we looked to do is to try and make it more community-based. So a community IoT project. So putting these sensors, the 20 sensors, in and around the gardens in the community, people's sheds, from as far as Twickenham in the southeast to Slough, the Windsor Palace, that's that kind of area, all around, not just the immediate vicinity of the airport.
You have to tell us touristy name to know where it is.
Yeah, I threw the tourist name in there on purpose.
Okay. So who put those? Who put those? You partner when you said it's a community project.
Yeah. So we reached out to the community over Twitter, through emails, through talking to the local Labour Party, the local Green Party, schools, and we managed to find around, I think we found 70 volunteers, only of about 20 were actually viable, considering they're in the right area that we could do the project with them.
Have you thought about putting this X into like bicycles or onto the cars as well to be able to measure a wider area of the city?
You couldn't. You'd have to have a pretty powerful. You could technically put them on bikes and things. But they wouldn't be very effective. I'm working on another project around building a mobile air quality sensor platform for public hire bikes well, generally for cities, which is trying to combat that, and so that you can instead of just having a number of. So in London we have 121 really high quality air quality stations run by the London Air Quality Network with King's College London. But the problem is that these are fairly sparse. There's 121 monitoring stations for somewhere the size of London, and the spaces in between places that don't have sensors is a place called Clapham Common. And the model says there that the air is clean. Well, not clean. The air is polluted, but not as polluted as. And then someone ran a study and looked at Clapham Common, and it was much more polluted because the model didn't take into account things like the canyon effect. So where there's tall buildings on either side, and all the pollution goes down through the window in the middle, and it's very, very dangerous. It's not good for you.
Canyon, is that a air quality terminology?
Yeah. So a canyon effect is if you've got, yeah, like a canyon with buildings. Yeah. Yeah. So a large number of static sensors doesn't quite fit the bill. So you have to. Mobile air quality, I think, is the way forward, complemented by static solutions. Putting them on bikes seems like a really good idea.
So I have seen a dashboard for London, which shows traffic, which shows air quality, it shows a whole bunch of stuff, which looks cool. I don't know what it really symbolizes, right? Whether it's a good or bad number. A lot of nice graphs, but it shows that it's being measured. Who does that?
Well, who produced the dashboard?
So let me look that up. I will come back to you.
It's run by the real-time data. It's just.
Sorry?
It's probably not real-time data.
No, I don't think that dashboard would be real.
Looked it up. My understanding was it was run by the city.
It's probably the London Beta Store. In that case, it's not real-time.
Okay. So let's get back to what you were doing. So you got the sensors. And because what was out there was not accurate, but you got a whole movement of real community moving to host these for you, right?
Yeah. So we went out.
The egg that you showed me, whose sensor is that?
So these were built. We bought them from a company called Wicked Device. Wicked Device took over the project that was started by. Are you familiar with Patch Bay? Mm-hmm. They were kind of the originator IoT platform. They were kind of the original IoT platform about 5 or 6 years ago, run by Usman Haque.
Okay.
Which is now transformed into Zively.
Okay.
But the community that they were part of, that they helped build the air quality eggs. So we thought that this is an air quality egg that was built by a community, which is perfect. It's built by the IoT, Amsterdam IoT, New York IoT, London, and they came together and built the thing. And we felt that was a perfect device, the perfect product that we should use, and it's a good air quality monitor too. And then we deployed them around in people's gardens, and over the course of the project, the following 2 months, most of the sensors aren't working anymore, but so that we came away with some really interesting understandings of how to and how not to run IoT community projects going forward. and because we faced a number of problems, and it was a really useful experience. So some really crucial things to take away from that was, in order to scale a community project, hardware breaks, and hardware breaks very often. We had some interesting tales of sensors going down, ringing them up, and finding out that a toddler had pulled the cable out. The individual was not technically proficient, so we had to go out and fix the issue. But if you're thinking about scaling an air quality project, or you're thinking about scaling an IoT project of that kind of magnitude on a community level, you have to think about, is it really a good use of time for a very small team to constantly go out to the field where the eggs are deployed or where the sensors are deployed to help with what are quite minor issues? So going forward, I think it's really important that we learn the lesson of building kind of like community managers on the ground and train people up that they are able to train and support local participants to debug and fix like day-to-day issues with the sensors, which is part of which is kind of is good in a way, because it's also putting forward advocating better digital education too.
So you got a huge win because you found that the quality that was measured by other bodies by the time which exists was not as accurate as what you were offering. So you did find that there was more pollution, right? To keep it sustained was the challenge, right? When you deployed it, looks like you had a huge undertaking. You mobilized a whole community of different stakeholders, and you got it all up and running, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's when you do large-scale sensors, even when you do beacons, it's a challenge, right? They run out of power, they just break, or weather could impact them. There's a whole bunch of issues to just keep them just where they belong, where you expect them to be in your measurement architecture, right? So yeah, that part I think is the challenge, and I think you're not giving yourself due credit. I just find that amazing of what you've already got done, because I remember 2 years back there was a startup, and at the time I was not so much into IoT, so I don't even remember who they are. I'm trying to locate them. In New York, they made people. They paid us in New York. I mean, I'm not in New York. I'm in San Jose. But they paid people to take their old cell phones, keep them charged, and point it outside their windows, and just stick it to their windows and point it to the streets. And then this company paid like $5 or something per user, and then they collected this data stream, and then they kind of manipulated it, and they came up with a whole bunch of information about the city, about the streets, the traffic, so many things, right? It was not sensors, so they couldn't measure pollution and stuff, but they could, right? I mean, that model could work. I don't know where it stands. I don't know the person who inspired me about this. And when I got to the stage where I got hit by IoT, and I said I would not been able to locate him. It's a him, and I hope it's a New York entrepreneur. Hopefully, somebody watching this maybe might connect me back to that person. But getting the community mobilized is a whole different animal, right? It's a different game. But you got the sensors, you had working sensors, you got the deployment, and you got this going. One thing you had said was about, so is it possible that we could have, we could partner with Vera, and she could give, sell Atmotubes to everybody, and that could, people pay for it, they have motivation to keep it. They will come, I got my Pebble Bee in their very first version, and I still use it. I attach it to my keychain attached to my phone pouch, and I lose it all the time, and I locate it all the time. But when it ran out of power, in the very first version, they had a power problem. It was different kind of circuitry they built than what they anticipated it to be. So it ran out of power sooner. But I went after them, and they came and gave me a replacement battery, which still keeps running. But if I paid for it, I would be more demanding. And if somebody took money from me, they would be responsible to obviously keep it running. So is there a model where somebody like Atmotube, where I could sell a bunch of these sensors, and then work in collaboration with the community, and then the data could be, more open data.
Sure. That's the idea. So we made the sensor such that it does not require high maintenance. So it just all by itself. The battery, basically you charge it and then you take it everywhere with you. It keeps collecting the data, sends it through the Bluetooth protocol to your mobile phone, and then the mobile phone would send it to our cloud, and then we share all this data to the global air quality map, and also we would be happy to share this with the communities and projects like yours. And also in terms of using the device, I think that if people would just use it for themselves, there may be, maybe there would be a point where they just put it onto the shelf and just forget about it. But if they are participating in some crowdsourcing of the data, if they are making something bigger, I think that would be a good reason for them to keep using them and to keep contributing the data.
Actually, that's a very good point. I saw in your, in your Indiegogo, Atmotube has an Indiegogo fundraising going on right now. That's how I got to know about them. And they had this beautiful video about where to use this in various situations. And one of them actually connected with me was this lady driving, and she has her windows rolled down, and then the thing says that pollution is up, and she immediately rolls her window up while she's going through some part of her city. So yes, individually, I would like to make sure that I'm not inhaling a lot of pollutants, but if it shows that a bunch of us who are driving through San Jose and we find that that you tell me that San Jose is more polluted than my neighboring town, that would be something that I would care about. Or you index it in the grander scheme of things next to London and say, I'm sure I've seen some indexes like that, which is the most polluted city to live in and stuff like that, and they show Shanghai or something, and you go, yeah, I know they are polluted, but I might be living in a polluted city pretty close, or maybe at a unhealthy level, even if it is not comparable to whatever other city they show. So I could take some collective action as a community member if I get that, right? So is it possible, James, for you to connect to Vera's data, because she has her own cloud? That's the thing with IoT, right? Everybody does build sensors and cool products, and it all goes to the cloud. Then it becomes fragmented, many clouds, right? All clouds should connect in the sky somewhere. So is there an open source standard for air quality data, or is it possible to connect?
Is there a standard for air quality data? That's a really difficult question. Well, first, yes, it's completely possible that Atmos and open sensors could do something like that, because part of parcel of what we do is just trying to create that repository for all sorts of awesome products that are trying to bring together like air quality data, earthquake data, flood data, all this kind of stuff that can help from activist campaigners and let people use that. And if you can imagine all of those Atmos sensors publishing to a single space where everyone can access this stuff free of charge, use it, share it, reuse it. I mean, this is next level, really interesting things.
That's something you're part of, or would you be interested if somebody sees the show and says, I'm also working on air quality in Brazil or Portugal or somewhere, right? Would you be interested in working with them? Because initially you said you had worked with IoT Amsterdam and New York, right? So I know there is a lot of connected city work that's being done in Sao Paulo, right? Mm-hmm. So would you be interested? Is there a way to bring this technically together to create an open standard?
Creating an open standard is creating an open standard is something that's very important. There isn't currently an open standard for air quality at the moment. Partly because a lot of work in IoT is about creating real-time solutions. That's kind of the magic of it. And you will not be able to find, I guarantee, you will not be able to try and find a scientist. I've tried very hard for my Air Public project to find a scientist that can say, So the way that you measure air quality at the moment, with say with nitrogen dioxide, with NOx, in the European Union, I'm not specifically aware of the American or Chinese or other legislation, but in the European Union we have regulation which is based on annual means and hourly means.
What does that mean?
So, say averaging the data over a year, averaging the data over an hour, and taking the standard deviation peak and all that kind of stuff. And if it goes over a certain threshold of an annual mean, then that area is deemed to be polluted.
So the underlying, let me understand this. I mean, I'm wearing my retail eBay hat from where I came. So we've had this, you know, it's the underlying unit of what you measure pollution is the same. The metric by which you say, you know, here is the level, degree of pollution for this particular city is different. So if it's not just, you know, so one aspect is open sharing of data from different sensor sources for a given city. The second aspect is once you have that for London, once you have that for, you know, San Jose, measuring that, so you have certain metrics. It's standard across all European Union.
Yeah, that is a standard across the European Union. It's the whole political bloc. But there are currently well, I haven't been able to find anyone in King of College London or anyone in London that will testify to saying a specific, so basically a near real-time value for measuring air quality. So you have hourly means and you have annual.
So what do you want the scientists to do? So you measure air quality and then you have this unit by which you're saying here this is how much it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what you can do now is you can compare how. So air quality is incredibly complex. So at the moment you've got, if you're comparing, so you traditionally you have something like passive diffusion tubes or measuring air quality over a long period of time and then averaging that. But if you want to work out what the air, if you want to work out whether you can say that a particular area is polluted at a certain time, so you are allowed to say that if you average it over an hour or if you average it over a year within EU. But if it's a real time, you cannot say with certainty that that area is particularly polluted because there's no specific means to there is no standard which to work against unless you
got it. So you don't have a baseline of what it should be over which, you know, you say, okay, now it is more polluted because it is past this baseline.
But saying that, part of the project that we're working with Breathe Heathrow, the part of the project for Breathe Heathrow was not so much measuring air quality, it was more bringing together many data sets. So seeing how air quality is impacted by collaborative data sets such as flight data, traffic data, so pollution from traffic, how busy the roads are, the noise level, and that's not so much an issue, and yeah, so all of these different data sets. So so actually I've got it right here, but I'm not going to turn my laptop around. I've got it's a flight data recorder because I live right next to an airport, it's about 200 meters away. And this is recording flight information that's going past within a 50-mile radius.
Okay.
So as the flight's coming down, if it has a heavy prefix on it, we can look at the heavy prefix and we can compare, looking at the time series and seeing whether or not, if there's a pollution sensor or a noise sensor. So if there's an A380, a particularly heavy aircraft, and it has a heavy prefix, we can see, probably, that NO2 jumps like 20 minutes later, or the noise jumps. So, and you bring that together with things like weather data, wind data, and then you've got a better picture, and you're better able to understand, and with lots of data science, better able to understand that specific.
So do the scientists not agree because they can't, you know, prove with high degree of confidence that the other factors are causal? It's just correlated. Is that why they would not agree? You said you would want scientists to endorse this, right? The real-time value.
Not necessarily getting them to endorse something. It's more. I'm not entirely sure, to be quite honest, why they won't. I just think they haven't quite got a standard for working out.
Okay.
Yeah, something to work against.
So it's more about, you know, getting a common language across the board for the real-time pollution that you have on a trend. You can see it, but it's kind of late.
Yeah.
And then what I understand is you want to see the different factors that is causal, that is causing the pollution level to go up, so you can take some action on it, right?
Exactly.
Action.
Yeah. So right now in the UK, right now in London, we've got a hurricane flying over us. Not an American-style hurricane, just a British-style hurricane. But it's incredibly windy. So one of the things that we found was, and it's been very windy for the last couple of months, so one of the things we were criticised about at the start of the project by some of the local air quality campaigners was we were running the project during the windiest months of the year, which means that the pollution is dispersed, which means that we're not showing how polluted it can be. But that's not that wasn't really the point of the project, was to show how polluted the area was. But that shows how one of those aspects of that specific kind of data can impact on the findings of the rest of the project.
So I find this super fascinating because I see so much parallel between how we look at retail data and figure out what is causal and what can be impacted in, you know, product flows. Is the same thing, right? That we have to show with 100% certainty and have standard metrics and everything. So I would love to actually see the data. So what I would like to do is follow up offline, James, and see whether I can actually see real data. And then maybe we can, you know, follow up and see who we want to pull in for, you know, driving any open standard, and I can see whether, you know, whether there is another James in the, you know, another part of the world who is working on something similar. So,
and another Vera.
Yeah. I have a question for Vera when I'm hearing all this, right? Because you have been, well, you gave your background, and then you said you came towards air quality, and you worked on it for a little bit, right? More than a year's time itself, you worked on this Atmotube. And then you decided to make this device that every consumer would pay for and carry on them, right? So tell me, how did you land here, right? How did you land here saying, I'm going to make a consumer device. I'm going to give it to everybody and make them responsible for air, to understand transparently what is the air quality where they live in. And then collectively they can take some action. Tell me a little bit about how you got to making a product as a consumer product.
Okay, so, well, because of what we do, we have to travel to China a lot because of the manufacturing that is on China side, etc., etc. And actually, when you go there, especially when you go to the manufacturing facilities, the air quality just, you know,
Just going to step out and switch up the camera.
Sure, go ahead. Okay, so.
Okay, I'm back.
Continue.
Yes, I'm back. So you said you had to travel to China?
Yeah, we travel to China a lot because our manufacturing facilities are there. And so when you go there, you just start pollution straight away, especially when you are on the manufacturing side. And so I thought, okay, so there are sensors that are big and stationary that can track the indoor air pollution most of the time. There are some projects that are measuring outside air qualities, but they are also mostly professional or community-based used in some projects. But there is no device that you can take with you when you go to China or when you just go around even your own city, and you would understand whether you're exposed to any risk of, you know, to any air pollution or not. And so that was the main decision point for me to start looking into whether we can make it compact and whether we can make it, you know, affordable for everybody and easy to use, etc., etc.
So essentially, if you carry your own air quality sensor, then you could check whether it is the same, right? When you are in New York versus Russia versus China, you're able to see whether it switches. So you're kind of creating your own benchmark of sorts.
Yes, moreover, you can even check the air quality inside your flat or apartment, and you can see that it differs in every room. So in our device, there is this button that switches the device to the so-called spot check mode when you start to take measurements 1 time per second. Basically, it helps to detect the exact source of the air pollution if you are moving around your house. So, for example, I found out that in the kitchen I have a much worse air pollution. So the air is worse in the kitchen comparing to my bedroom, for example. And so then I found out why, basically because of the chemicals, the household chemicals that I keep there. And so
Sorry, James, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think the Atmotube is great because not only is it's so small that, so I'm usually really critical of, well, not really critical. I'm usually kind of critical of consumer.
That's okay. I'm sure she loves good feedback.
No. Yeah, this is good. Usually, I'm critical of air quality consumer products because there's always the case that you have to turn them on, you have to remember to turn them on, and that kind of thing. So, and I find that passive solutions are usually better. But when something's this big and you can put it on your keychain or on your necklace, like there's a group which is really fantastic, and it's still accurate. There's a group in France that are building air quality scarves called Wear. Really, and when like your like Atmotube, which you can put on your necklace or on your person and not even know it's there and keep it on. Like, when it's like that, the air quality information you're gathering reflects the movements and life of an everyday person, and it's no longer abstracted, and it's no longer abstract in the sense that it's collected by some static monitoring station down the road on top of a train station somewhere, and then it becomes it's more humanized data.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really great. Also, I just want to ask a really interesting question. I was just interesting how people have. So it's released, isn't it? Is it released?
It's on Indiegogo. So we just launched our campaign a week ago, and we already hit the 50% of our goal.
Like how people use the data or something.
The data we have is only from our development sensors right now that we've been testing just everywhere around the world, including China and US. We're shipping the first Atmotubes early March. I can see that there are already 20 people from UK who ordered those. So I think pretty soon you'll have some data from UK as well.
So the data that you have so far is about a year's time data, right? From your own team testing, right? About a year's time worth of data that you have already.
I would say it's only a few months because before that we haven't really been collecting that into the cloud. So
okay.
It was just local.
So the other thing that fascinated me is, that you said that, we've been working on it for a year and we are ready to give this to you by March, right? So my experience, I've been funding this on Kickstarter, usually, all these devices, and everything I look at, I go, oh, I want one of them. I don't fund every one of them. I have my own skeptical questions and stuff. This one, I think I would want to buy one. But my experience has been that they go through the cycle, right? This is your funding cycle, and then you go build it. I've had some bad experiences where people have not been able to deliver stuff for me. For example, Vessel is this cup, like a drinking cup, and VESSYL. And they basically said, we'll check how hydrated you are, right? So they said, any and every drink you drink using the Vessel all through the day, right? And then we will check, caffeine could dehydrate you, water would hydrate you, and we would break things down, stuff like that, right? It looked very good in theory, and I think that there's a very smart team behind it. So we funded it on Kickstarter. And now the time has come for them to actually give us the device, and they are running into some technical issues where they're not able to do this for all possible liquids, right? So they have said, here is another version of our device which will just check water, right? Keep drinking your water and we'll measure and we'll tell you how hydrated you are, and we'll give this to you now for free, and wait for us to come up with our next device. So I'm just thinking, if I'm a person who's invested in that startup, or I'm sitting on that advisory or something, it's a cost. It's a cost of keeping their customers who invested in them. Otherwise, they could all pull back, right? That's the Kickstarter promise, right? If you don't deliver on your fund, on what you said you would give during your funding, then people could pull their money back. So they're giving me something else, but that's going to be an extra cost. They're not giving me what they said they would, because it's a big technical challenge. And I invested in it as an early adopter of tech, knowing that I'm helping a startup kind of go through their research to build something awesome. So I'm okay. I'm not going to pull my money back, and I'm going to wait. But I'm just curious, when you pick a March date, how confident are you, and why would I believe you? I mean, I want to believe you, but give me reasons of why I would believe you that you'll deliver in March, and I'll go buy it right after the show.
Okay. Well, we're confident because we already have working products. This is probably the third generation, the third generation of the prototype that we've built, and so this one already works just the way we want the final product to be working. So basically, this is what we're going to build on our production line, and also we have agreement with our manufacturing facility. So we just need to get the first order to get going.
So it's more the scale. You're ready for the scale. You have the product.
We're in a we're in the late stage of the development where we ran through series of prototypes. We've tested everything we could. We've been developing the sensors and the firmware and everything for almost a year. So now it's about the time to start the mass production. Yes.
And one question: as you move around, does it track the GPS of where I'm doing this? Like, suppose I'm here in my house, I walk around, I do it, and then I drive around to work, and I'm collecting that, and then I go to a different city. Does it keep track when it goes to the cloud? Does it keep my data tied to where I was at that point in time?
Exactly. So if you choose to share your data to everybody, it will be available with the location on the map.
Okay.
You can choose whether you want to see your own data, so you'll be able to track your personal history of the measurements, or you can choose to see the crowdsourced map where all people just share their data too.
Okay, sounds good. So we are well past our time. I always feel in this show that I get more questions at the end of it, then it's a good show. So James, I'm going to follow up with you for actual data, and Vera, I'm definitely going to go pledge on Indiegogo, and maybe we can share the link of the Indiegogo link so people can go look at your videos and check it out after seeing the show too. So awesome, guys. I'm seeing a lot of hearts on Periscope, and people are watching. They can actually send hearts, so I'm seeing a lot of hearts come by. So I'm happy. Thank you. With that, we are out of time, and thank you for staying with us for one more week, and I will see you all back again next Tuesday. I would like to see feedback on what you liked, or do you want more of this topic, because for me it feels like we've just scratched the surface. I'm going to follow up with James and try to smarten myself up more. So hopefully if I get enough feedback, maybe we can do a round 2 of this. So thank you everybody. I'm going to sign off, and bye.